to Angular Americas. This is the second of our bi-weekly events for the Angular Americas channel on Angular Nation. Today we're calling it Angular Americas Alive, which if you saw from the picture, similar to Staying Alive. You know, staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. Right? Everybody's got that one? Okay. All right, so for this week, we're going to get started diving right into talking about what was the best thing that happened this past week for you. And I'm going right to Sander. Sander, what was the best thing that happened this past week for you?
Angular. I was starting on a new project, and I was surprised how Angular enables people that have, let's say, the opposite of best practices, still have a working application. All
right. Angular is going to be the best every week for some people, for sure. And so I'm not surprised that's your answer. And Natty, what's the best thing that happened this past week for you?
Oh, I will have to say it was the first session of the Angular Architects course. So I'm not trying to promote this, but it was actually so great. I mean, the video was helpful, and the chat with all the team members was, it lifted a weight out of my shoulders for me. It was cathartic. I loved it.
Again, something that's great, but 2 promotions in 2 best things. Like, who has a non-Angular best thing that happened? Chow, something must have happened awesome with your new kid, right? What was the best thing that happened with your new baby this past week?
He smiles so much more. He knows how to respond now, so it's pretty cool.
Did he smile yet?
Yeah, he smiled. He smiled back when I talked to him. I don't even know I don't even understand what's going on, but it just smiles back, and that's pretty nice. Love it.
All right. That is the best. Bonnie, what about you?
I mean, I have to go back to Angular because I started the first week of architect training, and it was so much fun. I really have a great group of people in there, and so I don't want to be a bummer, but I never leave the house anymore. So, but I'm having a lot of fun with architect training.
That's good. That's good. And Kevin, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have anything, I'd love to hear about what was the best thing this past week for you too.
The best thing was that I struggled with a bug for 2 days. It was at a URL that contains a dot as a parameter, and there are not a lot of libraries that allow that. And it took quite a time to solve that, and now the business is changing their requirements.
Isn't it the best when you find a bug? Or fix a bug rather? Like, man, there's no better feeling than that.
Well, they were building a workaround and a workaround and workaround, and then
yes,
that was a good feeling that they said, well, leave it and we change the requirements. It was great.
Yeah, we're actually going to talk about bugs a little bit later in the show as well. And we're talking about what was the best thing that happened this past week. What was the best thing that happened this past week to you?
I saw my nephew after
That's
2
good.
weeks. Yeah, and
right,
we
good.
had so much fun.
Yes, family time, always fun. Actually, for me, it was a non-Angular. Well, sorry, what was that, Lemi?
No, I just said it was quality time.
Yes. Awesome. And for me, it was a non-Angular thing as well. I am not in line. Every state in the United States has different requirements for getting the COVID vaccine. And so I was not in line yet, but they do at times have things where the people who are have appointments don't show up or cancel or whatever. And then they usually just like try to find someone really quickly to fill in or whatever. And just by luck, one of my buddies was at the hospital getting his shot, and they were like, oh, does anybody know anyone who can be here in 5 minutes? And he texted me. I was there in like 2 seconds. And so I got my first shot, which I was like super, super psyched about. So that was definitely the best thing for me this past week.
Awesome.
Cool. Anyone else, anything else you want to talk about before we go on to the next section?
Yeah, onto the COVID thing. I guess one of the best thing happened to my state is that they open vaccine to all adults over 16 today.
Oh, that's
So-
awesome. They're open to everybody. Great.
Yep. So you can just walk in or drive through.
That's great. Definitely. All right. Let's move on to the next section where we are talking about Angular Nation News. And for Angular Nation News, we have Bonnie.
Okay, so tonight, actually, we have like a 30-minute break after this, and then we're going to jump into the. So tomorrow we have a job fair. We're doing our first Angular Nation community job fair with help from Busy and Lemise and Sonder. And this was actually, Lemise, can you just tell us real quick about what's going on tonight? Because it was your idea. It was such a fabulous idea, and it's happening about 30 minutes after this. So can you just tell us about that real quick?
Okay, so the job fair will take place this Saturday. So we said, why not just planning a job fair practice the day before for the developers only, no employees are there. Okay, and it will be like fun and at the same time constructive, because we will give advices to participants and how they can introduce themselves smartly, how can they be interesting without like being boring and all that stuff. So it will be about advices, and we will practice this, so the day after they are like so much more comfortable and not like really stressed out. Yeah, this is the idea.
So that's tonight, and then so that's in the job fair channel. We also tonight have our Friday social, which is when everybody just after work gets a drink and we just come and hang out, and it's very good practice for the introverts if you want to just kind of get on camera a little bit and say hello. So then tomorrow we have the job fair. Soon, I don't know exactly when, but very soon we're going to be announcing our mentor matching program. And we're going to open it up. It's completely free, but we have limited space. So if you're interested in that, when you see us announce that, you should jump in, sign up pretty quickly, because we're going to open it and let everybody register, and then we're going to close registration again. So if you want to do that, jump in, and as soon as you see that. What else? Oh, next week we have the hallway track with the Angular team, which is super cool. The second Tuesday of every month, we have the hallway track with the Angular team. Mark Thompson and Jessica Janik are going to come and hang out with us. It's going to be kind of a small group. It's like this. It's like a Google Meet, right? We don't promote this at all outside of Angular Nation, so it's going to be kind of cozy. Come and hang out with the Angular team, and they're not actually doing a presentation. It's just social. We're just hanging out. They give us updates and ask us questions, and you can like meet them, and it's super fun. So that, and we have all kinds of other stuff going on, but I'm just kind of catching the highlights there. We also have events in the APAC channel, in the Africa channel, in the Europe channel. So there's all kinds of other channels too. But yeah, that's it for now.
Awesome. Okay. Now let's talk about general Angular news. Angular news. It's the Angular news time. It's the time for Angular news. Now, Matteo's not here, who's going to go over some stuff. Natty, did you have anything you wanted to throw in there? And then I'll throw in some stuff as well.
I have only one item that I saw in the meetup that happened last week. And I noticed that there was Aristides was there. So I found it really funny because he was asking so many great questions. And actually, he brought up this item that I thought was so interesting. That was about the forms and strongly typed forms. So this was only something that they mentioned was going to happen first as an experimental advance. So I'm already excited about that, but not actually news, more like something that's going to happen more away in the future, but something I'm excited about.
Anything with Angular forms, I think is awesome to know about, because I think all of us have to use Angular forms or forms in general at some point. And most of the time, at least for me, I default to some of the Angular form stuff. So that's great. And we talked about last time that the Angular 15 was close to being releases. I think they had the beta release already. Two things of interest with it, at least, and Sandra, if you want to add anything to that I don't include, there's a big discussion about the end of Protractor that they talked about yesterday. There's a big various discussion on the GitHub page and offline in various sorts or whatever. But this was not very surprising. For a long time, the sort of maintenance of Protractor has been kind of not as they haven't been having as many people working on it internally at Google, not as much advancement. And meanwhile, a bunch of other testing tools like Cypress have really gained traction. And so the Angular team put out a survey a while ago. I forget exactly when that was, but they got the feedback that just not that many people were either using Protractor anymore nor interested in the future. So they're going to sort of let that end of life and work on transitioning people to other solutions. So it won't be part of the default, when you ng new project, it won't be part of the ETE and all that type of stuff. Anybody using Protractor still? I'm curious. Here. No. Anybody writing tests? Like you should be. The right answer is yes, even if it's no. Okay. And then the other thing that was interesting that Kyler wasn't on here, but he threw on the board that I actually wasn't aware of, but I actually am pleased to see, is that there is a TS-lint to ES-lint generator for Angular, which I like, because actually, even though I've had it in my mind as a thing that I want to do to move to ES-lint, it's one of those things where there's enough barriers that it's not like automatic, that I've been kind of pushing it off for a while. So for me personally, I am really looking forward to utilizing that to switch over, because TS-lint is end of life. If you guys don't know the background, it has been for a little while, and they've been trying to get people to use the TypeScript, I forget what it's called, the plugins or whatever, the rules with ESLint instead as the go-to solution. So now it's just a matter of how you kind of just like get over all of your rule sets and everything over there easily. So this generator should help with that. Sander, anything I missed or you want to talk about for Angular news?
No, I think Angular 12 is on the brink of being there. I'm looking forward to play with the Angular linker, which is of interest if you're building third-party libs and all the joy that comes with that. I'm looking forward to the end of Protector, because I have had some experience with it, and actually never a good one. So exit stage left on my account. But
yeah, definitely. And I mean, I really like Cypress personally. I know people use some other stuff, but just when I have had to do end-to-end testing, I try to avoid it as much as humanly possible. But yes, when I need to do it, it's been a pretty good experience. At least
yeah, Cypress works pretty well. I had some reasonable experience with Test Cafe and with a couple of other things. I have only traumatic experience with Protector.
Traumatic.
It's flakiness is not something that should be part of the product portfolio.
Yes. Cool. All right. Let's move on to our next section, where we're gonna do story time with Natty. So Natty, why don't you talk about what's are we gonna be talking about this week for story time?
Hi. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about bugs that we've
No
been trying
jingle?
Yeah. So
There's
I'm
no jingle.
what did you say? I'm sorry, Glenn, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, I was just expecting a little song before the last part of the
right.
intro.
I'm with you, Glenn. I that was one of my favorite parts about last week, Jeff. Like, you set the expectation.
Yeah.
Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, I actually will. So I was telling Glenn, I was telling Bonnie before that originally I planned this whole plan for my kids doing a little dance before each of the different sections. And then it blew my plan, because at the last minute, instead of working, doing school from home, they actually did go into school this morning. But next week, I will have actual jingles all worked out. So I do have plans for that. So fear not.
Cool. Well, this would have been a great opportunity.
Go ahead, Natty.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that because I named this story I'm about to tell the time I dropped the bass on production on my third week, working for a huge multinational overseas company that I won't tell its name because it's still out there and it's still big and they've got plenty of powerful clients. And I don't think anyone would like to know how they handle their database, allowing junior developers like me at that time, being able to mingle with their production database. So that was weird. So this happened like 5 years ago. It was like my 3rd year working as a software developer for an enterprise, but I had just switched jobs. So I was doing everything that no one else wants to do. And there was this cleanup they wanted to do in a database. And I was, what no one else wanted to do it. I really didn't know why. They showed me the database, what needed to be done. I did it. I called it a day. I went home, and then I began receiving calls about a bunch of bugs going on in production that no one else knew what was causing them. And I said, yes, I introduced this change, and it happened on that database. And that's when I saw the senior developer grab his head. Like, you did what? And I learned a couple of valuable lessons at that time. And one was always work local. The second was always ask the obvious questions. The database was named dev, so I assumed it was for development purposes. It actually wasn't. So, it was an awful experience. And I feel lucky that I wasn't fired immediately, but I lived another day to work in that company and learn more valuable lessons.
But
So that's my story.
With that story though, like I gotta say, any new developer who comes in and does something like that, I never think, in my opinion, it's ever their fault, because like it's the company's fault for doing something so stupid, like both the naming thing and also not having procedures or whatever else like that. I've seen that happen to other people as well, and it's always frustrating to me, like from that some companies that will let that happen, and then they'll blame the new person who just came along. It's like, what? Come on.
Right, but I mean, that's the most valuable question. Always ask the obvious, because especially in a new environment, people are always making stupid decisions, and they end up causing unrelated people who doesn't really know the whys and the hows to, do things like what I did and potentially drop tables in a production database.
Ani, you said that you had a good one too.
Okay, so just like Natty, I had just started a new job, and I was working for a very large company that I'm pretty sure you've heard of, that I won't say, but they are a hardware company that was getting into more online cloud-based services. And so we're building this app with AngularJS back in those AngularJS days. We're building this app with AngularJS that was like a big online learning platform. So this is an online thing. It was a lot like this Google Meet, right? We have a lot of people in a call, and we've got like volume stuff. It's a very complicated page with a timer at the bottom that tells you how long the call's been going. So every second, the timer will go to the next one. And they're using AngularJS to update that second with the root scope.apply. And there's so much going on this page that they were starting to have a lot of lagging and performance problems, and it was locking up and just stuff going on because there's so much going on. And so I started looking at the scope, and there's all these watchers going on. Kent C. Dodds had a thing out at the time that was like ng stats, and it would tell you like how many watchers were going, and it was great. So I use this thing, and I immediately say, oh my gosh, we've got so much going on. And I started trying to take some stuff back. So one of the things that I did was this little timer at the bottom. I said, this thing's going to iterate every second. We don't actually need, we're not getting anything from the database or anything. It's just a counter, right? So we could actually use jQuery for that. We don't actually need to update this. So I fixed that. And with that one, my very first tiny little pull request, I created 50 new bugs, because this team had been they didn't know anything about really the scope. And they didn't know anything about change detection at all. And so because they did so many things wrong, but they were getting away with all of it because this little counter was updating the scope every second. So because it was firing change detection every second, then no matter what, they had all kinds of inputs and outputs that were wrong, but they didn't know that nothing was working because every second it just rechecked everything. And so once I fixed that thing, then all the other stuff, which was broken to begin with, but it wasn't broken because anyway, so they blamed it all on me. And then everybody didn't like me, and yeah, it was traumatic. But I was right. I mean, architecturally, it was correct, but everybody was mad. It was a disastrous first pull request. Yeah, good times. That's my story.
Painful. Lemi.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar story, but more disastrous. Like, it was the first year I get it was my first job, and like my first year after I get graduated, and I fixed a bug. It was an issue for a client. It was a blocker issue, and what I did is changing the signature of a method, which is public. And I added a parameter or something, I forgot. And then I pushed the code, and the merge and the request mode was merged. And soon after, it was a compilation error in production. So like it was something, yeah, it was a disaster, but yeah, I was like, I'm extremely sorry, but yeah, it was too late, but I really learned from this a lot. So yeah, I'm
That's the
not
thing.
ashamed.
If you can learn from it, I think, and survive it,
Yeah.
then it's for the better in the long term, I think. Kevin, did you have one too?
Well, actually, I had 2 disasters in 1 week. It was at a Dutch national bank. I don't say the name here. I think 15 years ago. On my first day, I removed the whole version control repository because it was on a public accessible shared drive. And I thought I was removing my own folder. And the second day, that was on Friday, we had a bug on our Apple users. And by that time, we had those fancy little colored Apple computers. And I fixed it. It was Friday late. I went to the test. I said, well, our Apple users can log in. And I just tested and it says, okay, go to production. And then after the weekend, my boss came to me and he tapped my shoulder and said, well, all our Apple users are very happy, but all the other users can't log in anymore.
You know, there's actually 2 amazing things about that story. First of all, that the 2 issues that you had were completely unrelated in the same week. Like that's especially tough when two disasters. Plus, deploying on Friday afternoon, like that's one I've run into that before, but like that's like a hard. There's something burned into my brain now that I just cannot do that anymore because of like the dozen times or so when I'm like, oh, I'll just do this quick and then go home, and it's like no, then I'm some issue, fire occurs and I'm stuck at the office for another like 12 hours fixing it or whatever. You learn how to tell the manager like no way.
Yeah, I also don't do it
Monday
anymore.
morning.
I stop development that Thursday and then it's okay.
Yeah. Ciao. What do you got?
So I got a bug this week as well. So this is a bug that's reported by one of the biggest customer in Europe for about 2 months now. And then we only take a look at the bug if we're on support rotation. So I was on my support rotation, I think about 2 weeks ago. And then by the end of my support rotation, this bug got handed to me. I'm like, okay. So I take the bug with me, even though I'm off support rotation. Then I try to fix the bug. So the bug was, you have a dashboard, and then on this dashboard, the customer can create multiple cards to display data. Like you can display a chart inside of this card, or you can display like a table inside of this card. And if it's a table, the data is all client-side pagination. So there's no server-side pagination. So imagine if you have like hundreds of thousands of records, and you're gonna load into this card, hundreds of thousands of records. And imagine you have 5 cards like that. So the page was unresponsive. And then there's a feature called auto refresh timer that the customer can put on a card, a single card, an auto refresh timer like 5 seconds. So 5 seconds refresh, which means fire another API. So while it's loading for this like 200,000 records API, it fires another one. And then you have 5 cards, you just time that by 5. So every time we have 5 requests going out. And all of these cards component is built with Angular 2. but we're using the HTTP from AngularJS. This is a hybrid app. So I was so struggling to try to find a way to cancel the request, because my brain was like, we need to cancel this. Because if it was in HTTP client, I would cancel it. So I tried to wrap an observable, blah, 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 doing all kind of these things, but none work. And every time we need to deploy it, it takes like a whole day to deploy, because we have to deploy to an environment that reproducible with enough data to reproduce this bug. So it's finally after 4 days, after going back and forth with this sales guy who's too afraid to go to the customer, we almost lose this customer. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this final approach, is that I just have a Boolean flag saying, okay, if you're still loading, do not fire the refresh timer. I'm not trying to cancel anything. It's just don't send requests anymore. And it actually works. So I'm like, okay. And then it saves the
good old
guy.
gum inside the dike. You put the gum inside the crack in the dike.
Yeah. I was trying to go with the right way, but it didn't work. And we didn't have time. So
oh no, dude, those solutions are the best solutions. When you like just throw something in there like that and it works, it's like, okay, now no one ever touch this.
And one other thing is that they try to put it on the front end side of things, because like the front end keeps sending the request. However, there's this like query stuff going on with the back end as well. So now, because we fixed the front end now, the customer can actually go to the back end guy and say, hey, fix the query. So it's good.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Actually, so my one is was I mean, I've had so many production bugs. Like I could everything that you guys have just basically said. Like I think I've done some version of all of those. But the craziest one was one day for Get Human. Just all of a sudden, the site was down, and I hadn't made any change that day. So I automatically was just like, okay, so I didn't actually do anything. It's nothing I did. Let's look into what happened and start investigating. Turns out like this one table in the database is just completely gone. Yeah, and this it took me a while to just like even get down to that, because like there were so many things on fire as like a downstream effect of that happening. But like finally I'm like, okay, so somehow this table got deleted. Like how did it get deleted? And then started looking through code of like what could have happened.
That was me.
Yeah, well, I for some reason, I don't know about you guys, but like maybe I quickly think like, did I do this? But then it's maybe I too quickly make justification that I didn't do it and try to look for other reasons. And looking all around and you know, we eventually got a backup in there and thought everything was fine, even though we didn't know what was going on. We were still investigating, and a couple hours later, then it was gone again. And so then we're like, what in the world? And like, I think it ended up taking like 12, hours, like something like we were late into the night, just trying all sorts of different things, trying to figure out what the deal is. We eventually like put the data back, and it wasn't getting deleted for again, but like we're still like curious. And then I eventually one of the admins for us mentioned like, right before, like it was just kind of an offhanded comment he mentioned. Like one thing that kind of like bothers me is that right before the site went down both times, I actually was making changes in this one particular page or whatever. And I'm like, okay, let me look into that. And after another couple hours of like looking through code, I finally realized it was indeed my fault, because it was this front end change that I made for our admin tools, where the admin is deleting very particular records for this one particular table. But what happened is I put a bug in there where when it sent the request to the API, it didn't include the ID of the thing to be deleted. And I didn't have code on the back end to make sure that it required the ID. So it was dynamically putting together the SQL or the NoSQL code to do the delete statement. So the delete statement was basically being made with like not the ID being there to basically delete everything. And it corresponded right after I put in that change like a couple days earlier, but the admin just hadn't done it until then. And so that was both satisfying to like finally find it, but then also completely horrifying to know that I'd caused so much pain for so long, and made so many mistakes along the way.
Yeah. And the admin had the bug is he deleted something and he was, why is this back? Delete.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I happened the second time. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Anyone else have any other bug stories?
Yeah, I have all of those too.
Yeah.
I did all of those things and worse.
Yes, I'm sure. Okay, let's move on to the Angular quiz. It's the time for the Angular quiz. Time for the Angular quiz with Bonnie.
I am going to try to do a new thing where I'm going to share this with, hold on, did I do it with, yes, I think. Let's see if we can do this. Can you hear the music?
No,
No.
I think you have to like grant special permission for
No, we can hear it now.
Now I can.
Yeah.
You can hear it?
Yes. There we go.
All right, y'all.
Like
let's play the game. Come on. Kahoot.it. And the game pin is 9624268. Remember, this is just for fun. It's all silliness. And I try to do something a little, and I just want y'all to know it's not that easy to create these all the time. So I'm just going to do some fun stuff sometimes. I was thinking of just like having like Angular community trivia. But this is actually logo trivia. So I'm going to show you some logos and you have to figure out what those logos are for. Luckily, it's all multiple choice. So if you don't know, you could just guess. It's fine. And also guess quickly because it matters how fast. If a bunch of people have the right answer, whoever got the right answer first is going to get the most points. Okay, so we got Lamise, we got Mateo, Natty, Jeff, Sander, Chow. Anybody else? Ready? All right, here we go, y'all. Wait, where's Fizzy? Are you playing? I don't have Fizzy in here. There's Fizzy. Okay, we almost lost you. Anybody else? Hold on, we have...
Glenn is joining.
Glenn, are you gonna... All right, we have 8. There's one more. Who are we missing here? Anybody? No? Maybe not. Oh, that's because I'm sharing my screen. Duh. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Let's go. Do. First question, which logo is this? Is it RxJS, Nest.js, NGRX, or CLI? Well, a couple of you knew right off the bat. You see why you have to have the music? All right. Almost all of you knew that. Nest.js. Good job. Good job. Lamise coming out strong. And Saunders right, just nipping at your heels there, Lamise. You better hurry.
Quick.
Which logo is this? Is this GitHub, Cypress, StackBlitz, or Firebase? All right. Good job. Good job. That was StackBlitz.
Can I have a little disclaimer?
Yes.
On the last question, I just look at my screen and I was like, what logo is it? It just show all of these shapes. I don't see any logo. So it just pick randomly.
You have to look at you have to look at my screen. Yeah, because it just tells you the answers, I think. Oh, yeah, because you have to match the color with my screen.
Yep. All right.
Yeah. All right. Saunders tough to beat. Okay. What's next? Which logo is this? Is that CLI, Bazel, Zone.js, or Material? CLI. I love the leaderboard. All right, Jeff Welpley coming into the front. Which logo is this? Oh, that's a hard one, y'all. Angular Forms, Angular Labs, Angular Material, or Angular Elements? That one's kind of obscure. I didn't know if you'd know. Okay. Angular Elements. Okay, Fizzy's coming up, Jeff. You got to be careful. Fizzy's on a roll. Which logo is this? Firebase, Ionic, GraphQL, or Nest.js? I know, too easy. Firebase. That one's pretty much been the same for a long time, so I figured that was. Now they're going to get a little bit harder as we go. Fizzy, you got it. Fizzy's almost catching you, but Jeff, you're keeping up. You're staying ahead of him. Which logo is this? Angular Nation, Angular Air, Angular YouTube, or Angular Connect? Angular Air is correct. Yeah, you can't really beat Jeff with that one because Jeff used to be the host of Angular Air, so he probably had it. Jeff, were you involved in that logo at all?
No, I don't. I don't think I was. I think it was. Oh no, I was about to say it was after, but no, it was before me. It was before me. I think it was Ken did that originally.
That was a cool one. Stands the test of time. All right, we still have 4 left. It's anyone's game. Which logo is this? Google Hangouts, Google Drive, Google Developer Experts, or Google Play? And if you don't know, you can guess.
Crap, I think I got this
Google
wrong. Yes, shit, I got it wrong. Damn it.
Oh no! Oh no!
I did it too quick. And
Jeff comes tumbling down out of first place. And here comes Fizzy right up into the top. All right. Which logo is this? See, I told you they're getting harder and harder at the end. So you might not know this. This might be cheating, especially for the Americas group, because this is kind of a European thing. So I was going to say I almost gave it away, but I didn't give it away because all the choices are European.
That's wrong too.
It's where I met where I saw Samantha for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm going down.
Okay, well, now the last two, the last two are, oops, I just locked my screen. I have like a hot corner on my screen to lock my screen. Sometimes I do that crazy. The last two might be even a little bit more obscure, but I'm going to see who knows this. Remember, it's all for fun. And, oh, I'm sorry, because I turned on my screen share. Let's share here. Can you see this? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, 2 more last. These might be hard. I wanted to save the hard ones for the end because I didn't want it to be too easy. All right, Chow's got. Now, also, if you win, you get a free hat. If you've already gotten a free hat, the next person behind you gets a free hat. So if you don't already have a hat, you can get a hat if you want a hat. Which logo is this? Angular CLI, Angular Compiler, Egghead.io, or Hi-Res.io? Okay, it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard. Okay, one last question. The bonus round. Chow is in the lead. Chow, do you have a hat yet? I don't think you do. All right, here's your chance. What is the cartoon's name, y'all? Is it Natty? Is it Kyler? Is it Bonnie? Or is it Mateo? True story. If you don't know, you can guess.
I have no idea. There was a cartoon with this?
It has a name. It has a name. It has always had the same name. And if you ask Shai Resnick, he will tell you what the name of it is. It's Bonnie. Which is, this is, okay. And see, now, this is a true story. And he named the cartoon, and like if you go back to all of his old tutorials, he actually named the cartoon Bonnie way before he met me. And I was so confused because he kept saying Bonnie, and I thought he was talking about me, and I was like, what? And then he was like, yeah, it's been Bonnie before you came along. And I was like, okay, so it was a coincidence that the cartoon's name was Bonnie. And who's our winner? Third place, Jeff. Good job, Jeff. Sander. And first place, Ciao. Woo!
Wait, Sander, did you know it was Bonnie?
I guessed it. It looks Bonnie to me.
Wow.
All right.
The screen of on my phone froze, so I missed an answer, or I touched the wrong one.
Sure,
You were robbed,
you're just
Sander.
sore loser there.
Yeah, I'm a sore loser. I can't stand it if technology gets into my way.
So actually, Jeff and Sander, you guys were runners up last week because Natty, I think, beat you out for a hat last week. So that one of these days, actually, I think we're sending you guys hats anyway. But Ciao, send your mailing address to Samantha Brennan. Tell her you won the game. Say, give me my damn hat, and she'll get that out to you. That was fun. Did you guys was that okay with the logos? Did you guys like that?
Yeah,
I
thought
was,
that was good.
yeah, it was not bad at all. I was just thinking logos from within the Angular ecosystem, right? But then you throw conferences and stuff like that. It's nice.
Definitely.
Good. I'm glad.
Cool. Thanks, Bonnie.
There she
That was
is.
great.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now we are going to have a new section that I talked about last event that we were going to try to do. And so this is going to be our first time trying it. We'll see how it goes. And if you guys like it, we'll do it again. So it's called the Angular App Teardown. And I'm going to share my screen and basically what we will do is, can everybody see my screen right now?
Yep.
Okay. So what we're going to do is basically, have you guys looked at this before, Made with Angular? Is everybody familiar? Yes. Basically has a bunch of people submit sites that they've built with Angular. And we're just going to take one of these and look at it and kind of do an analysis of typically like just some performance stuff. We'll run some metrics over it, and we'll try to see if we can kind of like reverse engineer what they may be doing well or not well from that sense. And then we might talk about some UX stuff as well. We'll just spend like 5-10 minutes on it. We don't spend a lot. So I was going to pick this Nile Love site because I thought that was kind of interesting. But did anybody else have anything from this list? If you don't, off the top of your head, we'll just go with this. Anybody have something that they wanted to, that immediately jumps out at them? Okay. We will go with what I had picked. So it's a jewelry site. I did look at it briefly before, but I didn't like do a full inspection. So part of the thing with the App Teardown is that you don't actually prep for it that much. You sort of do it on the fly. And while we're doing this, anyone has any thoughts or suggestions of other things to try or whatever, definitely let me know. But the goal is to, for what we're trying to do, is to look at it from the kind of Angular perspective of like how they're using Angular and how well it's built and that type of thing. And so typically with these types of sites, I mean, if I'm doing something like this, if anybody random was just like, oh, tell me what you think of, an assessment of the site or whatever, like I'll run a Lighthouse report first. So you guys are all, I'm assuming everybody here familiar with Lighthouse in Chrome DevTools, yes? Okay. And so let's just generate a report and see what comes up. Typically, it'll take a second to load the site from, I mean, you could pick mobile or desktop. I usually do mobile just because these days most people are coming from their mobile device. Ooh, what was that? That'll be an interesting one. Okay, so let's look at this. So performance decent, but for a public site, actually, like I usually personally always want to get into the 90s. So there's probably some stuff there that we can look at. Accessibility, we'll maybe look at a couple things of that. Best practices, SEO 85. Okay, let's get into some of the details. So have you guys ever, let me switch back, stop sharing for a second. Just so I can see people. So I always feel like it's tough when I'm sharing my screen. I don't get like the feedback of like seeing everybody else. So just really quick, how many people have like looked into, I know Sander you have, but other than Sander, what the Lighthouse scores actually mean? Does anybody like raise your hand if you've like understand it really well? Okay, good. All right, then it won't be a bad thing to go over that. Okay, so looking at these scores, first contentful paint. So when the server returns back a view, and down here, by the way, these kind of align with what the screenshots are of as it loads, which we'll look at that in just a second. But the first contentful paint is where most of the content is there, not the first paint, which is different. The first paint overall is where there's anything at all. First contentful paint is when it has a majority of the stuff on the page. So the difference is between like this first, this number 3 slide down in the time series here, where there is some stuff displaying but not the main image, and then the next one has most of the stuff on it. And so I believe that if we can you usually have I forget what these are marked off. All right, let me go back. Okay. The speed index, I actually usually don't pay. This is a compilation of a bunch of different stuff. So, I mean, it's somewhat useful as a higher level metric, but I actually don't pay attention to it as much. Oh, sorry, the largest contentful paint. That's where I mixed up the two. The first contentful paint is where the first paint is, and the largest contentful paint is actually the more important one, because that's where the user sees most of the stuff. So between the two of these, obviously they're both somewhat important, but the Google and especially if you care about SEO, search engines give you ranking more based off of the largest contentful paint than the first one. And then time to interactive is important as well. So even though the user might see something, you guys might have experienced this on sites where you actually have a page loaded, but then you try to click on things and nothing responds. And obviously that's because the client-side JavaScript hasn't loaded and fully bootstrapped on the app. So this is actually really good. I don't know, we can look into how they're doing this, but to have the time to interactive before the largest contentful paint means that obviously the client side is loading a lot of the view here. But 2.8 seconds for time to interactive is actually decent. That's why it's in the green. And nothing's blocking it, which is good. And then the layout shift is actually something relatively new that they added to these, like within the past year, I think, to try to give a sense of the jank on the page, which obviously, if you have, especially if you have both the server view and then like the client view comes in, and the client view kind of like janks the page, like has stuff moving around in different places, or even as the page is loading with images and stuff, if things start moving around, that's very disruptive to the user. And for SEO and for just user experience reasons, that is always bad. So there is actually a decent amount of layout shift here, which, like, let's just reload the page for a second, and probably we can even see that. Well, actually everything's cached, so I guess we won't see it that time.
They have animations in there, and those count to this.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely true. Thanks, Sander. Yes, definitely. So let's look at the recommendations. I mean, usually when I'm doing a, especially like an SEO type analysis, like there's always like deeper stuff that's not listed as recommendations that, like, once you really dive into stuff, but the recommendations they give you is like low hanging fruit. So initial server response time, relatively high, although to be honest, if everything else was fast, sometimes this can be okay, from the sense that even though it's so 500 milliseconds for the initial server response, but if you have everything else optimized and the user's still seeing stuff within a few seconds, sometimes this can be okay. So this isn't always necessarily a problem. But that said, you can usually reduce this fairly easy with caching on the server side. All right, and then
putting your stuff on a CDN.
Yes, CDN for sure. Yeah. Having some of the assets loaded locally instead of halfway around the world, definitely. And then removing unused JavaScript and unused CSS. Sometimes, let's click into this. I mean, sometimes this is something you could do, but I found for these ones, on most of the places I've worked, it's not necessarily actionable because it's stuff that is somewhat intertwined, even though the tool thinks it's not. So I don't know how useful that is all the time. And then images do not have explicit. Actually, I don't even, Sandra, do you know what this one is? I've never seen this one. Do not have an explicit. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, if you have images, you should always set like the width and height, because otherwise you get the content shift. An image gets like 0 height on if you're not setting it, and if then the image comes in and it's like 600 pixels wide, everything's pushed down or pushed aside, and that gives a large content shift, and that is very easy to solve. Yes,
definitely. And actually, one thing along these lines that I found really useful is that so I know there are people who have different reactions to AMP. Has anyone heard of AMP? I know Sandra has, but anybody else heard of AMP? It's basically a Google technology that allows Google search to cache your site a little bit easier. But they have a bunch of web components that you can drop into your site. And one of them that you don't have to use, even if you don't use AMP for anything else, you can just drop in this one particular web component for AMP image, which does this one thing that I think is really cool, where it will asynchronously load your images, and it will create a placeholder. So it forces you to specify the width and height, or at least the dimensions of what it's going to be, and it will reserve that space for you, and then asynchronously load it, so that basically the loading of the image doesn't block in your initial page load, which obviously allows the rest of the page and content to load much faster. Yeah. But it will still reserve the space, so things won't jank when it does load in.
Actually, that is in the browser now, and the image tag has like a lazy load attribute that does exactly the same thing. It's not called lazy load, it's something else. I would have to look up, but there is like something in the browser that, so you set a width and height on an image, and you tag on the lazy loading attribute, which is not lazy loading, but something else. And you get this out of the box in most browsers.
I did not even realize that exists. They do have, they just might be their class name or whatever, but they do have this lazy loaded class name. Maybe they're doing this manually, what you're saying. Do you know what it's called?
Yeah, let me look it up.
It's loading, and the attribute is loading, and the value of that attribute is lazy.
Oh, that's cool. I learned something new too. That's great. Cool. All right. And the other ones, avoid changing. These ones seem pretty down in the weeds, so I'm going to skip over some of these stuff. And I'm going to skip over accessibility, not because I don't care about accessibility, but because I just don't have as much to say about it. If somebody else does later, we can definitely go back to this.
I think you can improve accessibility quite easily by using semantic HTML instead of the Vitis.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is a big low-hanging fruit in most projects I'm seeing. There are way too many divs or like undetermined HTML tags that actually HTML has a boatload of tags that are usable for, hey, I have a section. Right, there is a section tag. Hey, I have a header. Use a header tag. Don't do a div header. Just use a header tag.
Yeah,
It's
I will
there.
say that it is making your site accessible is easier than people think. That for sure is the case. You just have, like, going through these things, it would probably take a developer like less than a day to just kind of like check mark off, making sure that they have the attributes in there, and you reduce the number of divs, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's not that hard. Okay. Let's see here. So links to cross. What is this? I'm not sure what that is. Also, I would have to look into that for best practices. Although core, I'll say in general, cores is always a pain. I'm sure everybody's gotten different cores issues before in the past. But I'm sure that's something related.
We're almost at the top of the hour, by the way, if you're watching.
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, totally. Let me just quickly go through the rest of this. Yeah, links not being crawlable for SEO reasons, that is definitely huge. So anyways, we don't have to go through the rest of this, but hopefully with a couple things that we did dive into, people have learned like a couple things. And in future ones, this, like, so I feel like for this time we kept it somewhat generic in terms of talking about the tool and what some of these mean. But for some of these app teardowns, maybe we'll get into like even more specific for different UX stuff that we can talk about. So, all right, let's do this. Let's, I do want 1 minute really quick. Let's skip to Matteo. Are you there? Oh, wait, I think he was there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you have feature requests that you wanted to talk about? Things that you wanted to see within Angular?
Within Angular, it's coming the possibility to define directives into a component that we can just link them and make them work without defining into template, right? So that's coming up. I saw that update this week.
Yes, that'll be cool. And I think in future events that we have here, if you guys, one thing I want to do with sort of this section near the end of our events is talking about for the future of Angular, things that you want to see. So even stuff that may not even be on the radar of people right now, but things that you thought about, it'd be great to talk about those. And who knows, like if it's a good idea, you know, like Angular, you know, Sander and Bonnie and I with some of the people that we talk to on the Angular team, like we start kind of pushing things more, like maybe some of the things that you think about can definitely be integrated in the near future. But let's get right to the closing since it is the top of the hour. And really quick, I want to go around and let's, in one sentence, talk about what you are excited about for this next week. And Bonnie, I'm going to start with you.
I would have to say I'm excited about, well, I'm excited about spring. That's the biggest thing. I love it when the weather gets warmer. It's been cold. It's been the longest winter we've ever had. And we had like a little fake spring where we thought it was going to get warm. And then, yeah, so I want the weather to get warm. That was not one sentence. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Natty, what are you excited about?
I'm excited about the job fair and the mentorship program starting. I wanted that to happen for so long already, and it's about to happen. So I'm really excited about that.
Cool. Let me.
It's Ramadan next week. I don't know if you know it, but it's a celebration here. It's a religious celebration for 1 month. Yeah, and I'm excited about it because it's yeah, we always like take dinner with the family, and there is so much fun, and yeah, so I'm excited about Ramadan.
Very cool. Ciao.
I'm getting my second shot next week.
Oh, nice. Matteo.
I'm releasing publicly the dynamic forms library. So yeah, I'm gathering people, discussing stuff. So yeah, I'm excited on it.
Good. Glenn, anything for you?
Well, some of you know I started a new job at the end of March. My first payday is next week.
That's where it gets real. Nice.
Yeah.
Fuzzy, you have anything?
Fizzy?
Nope. Busy, sorry. Okay. And for me, this Sunday is not only my birthday, but it will be the first, my first soccer game, the football game of the spring season, and my daughters are playing as well. So it's going to be, and we're going out to lunch and have fun. So looking forward to that. Definitely.
Happy birthday in advance.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, I had fun this week. You guys. Oh yeah, I missed there. Sorry,
Fizzy's
I
back,
did
by the way, too.
I don't
I
need
did
a
the-
sentence. I'm excited on this one.
Oh,
I'm going
look
to
at
build
that.
this.
How long will that take you, Sander? How long will
Can you
it
do a video?
Probably like 2 or 3 evenings.
do? Definitely
Pixar
do
didn't happen, Sonder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely do a time series
I
video.
will just put it back here. So
Nick,
it's like a
so for
new
the-
set. It just came out this week.
So for our segueing to our next event, when we
Hold
see
on,
you,
wait.
we
I
will
think
see
Fizzy's
that.
back. Do we have time for Fizzy to
Oh,
tell
yeah.
us what he's excited about?
Yeah, go for it, Fizzy.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. I lost the window to my to the chat, so I'm excited about the job fair coming up. It's been a long way coming. I'm excited about the practice session we'll be having today. Thanks to everyone who made this possible. Thanks to Lamis for the wonderful ideas. Thanks to Bonnie for pushing this from the beginning till the end. I'm just excited that it's finally here.
Very, very cool. Well, thanks for everyone for joining. I will see you guys again in 2 weeks. All right.
See you.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Happy Friday.
Bye.